Something which we have to learn is, what does this mean? How can we add to the knowledge? This goes back to what I always said. If you remember, we used to play a tape every day. We started. As part of it, I said, the beauty of it is that we can use the matter state, nano state and plasma together because they are made of the same and the bond is very strong. Let's expand on this, because I'm sure now that we are heading towards the space operation, this will make a lot of sense to them, especially scientists who work in the background with this technology. You have and you used nano-coated plate, copper, and you used zinc. You all used in the water with the salt, NaOH, or NaCl, depending in which phase of the process you there. To make the nanoplate copper, you first put the NaOH, and then you put it in conjunction with zinc or other materials in a salt water. So you understood the environmental convention was sodium. Sodium has created a new environment, new atmosphere. Let's expand the knowledge in a different way. We take the same components. We take the same nano coating. We take the same zinc. We use the same water. What about if we use magnesium? What about if we use potassium? What about if we use different salts? What this means is that if we use different salts as part of this process, be it, I cannot get rid of it, I'm back in the same problem with this thing again. Be it use of magnesium, be it the use of potassium, or any other salt, what would it do? What about if we use a combination of these in both nano coating and both in gas production? When you nano coat and when you make GaNs, when you have the sodium, that sodium creates a specific temperature gravitational magnetic field that on the copper, for example, you release the gravitational magnetic field strength of a given strength isotope of the copper. When you hold a piece of copper in your hand, it is copper, but for you to understand that this copper, for it to be solid in your hand, if it was made of the same atomic molecular structure strength, it would have been already nanomaterial. So when you hold a piece of copper wire in your hand, is made of copper of different isotopes in respect to gravitational magnetic field strength. So when you use sodium, let's say you release level 20 strength. Now you have in this here level 20 strength. Then when you introduce magnesium, or you only use magnesium salt in production of the nano coating or in the gas production, now for example, let's say you release the strength on of, let's say 24. If you use potassium, let's say you release 60. We don't know, these are just guesses. I can give you exact figures what you want to know. So what you will see and what you will understand is now you have to start learning to play with the environment and the conditions you make for that environment. Now you see it's the same copper, you created the same nanomaterial, you still create the same CO2 structure but of different strength or a composition of. This gives you huge facilities, huge strength in research and development of new technologies. You used copper. Now let's use brass. We predetermine which layers we want to be. So you use, let's say, sodium with potassium to release a specific strength of the nickel in brass. And then you use sodium with potassium, magnesium or another salt to release the nickel strength of a specific strength from the brass. Now you change the salt composition that you only want now, after you created those 3 layers, only the copper of a given strength to become. Now you see a new world of transistors in the plasma condition. We walk into a new world of science of plasma superconductive resistors, transistors and every other filtering we want. Nothing has changed. Some of you maybe used potassium before, because I did. I was explaining yesterday in one of the teachings. When I started making the first nano materials using NaOH, I could see I needed radioactive material in this composition, because it would give me, without buying radioactive materials like smoke detectors, I could operate in the same region of radiation where I had my nanomaterial, where I had my GaNs material, and I have my radiation facilities available too. And it's the first time I reveal this to you, if you haven't been in one of my specific teachings on metallurgy. I went into the shopping centers looking for a caustic. But I start looking that do they add potassium to this caustic? Because in the composition of the potassium, by the ratio of the distribution of the energy, you have a potassium 40. K40 is radioactive, a specific field radiation. So I had my radioactive condition which I wanted for control of certain productions of gases, especially production of deuterium on the shop. Then I went specifically buying potassium salt. You can buy it from any chemist. So I delivered a specifically energized radiation controlled environment by the choice of salt. There are a number of salts you can buy to do this. Don't forget, I'm a nuclear physicist, I understand the structure. For the first time, I'm teaching you to understand. A lot of people were wondering how he does this and that. Now, I try. Now that you have educated in the field, the process. Go back again what I said. With this new technology, we have the matter, the nano, and the GANs made of the same, and the bond is strong because they are made of all the same elements. If you can decide the composition of your alloy, you can decide the resistors and the transistors and other materials. Now you see the game changes. As I said, the teaching is complete. It's adding to the knowledge. It's the same nano coating, but understanding that even the CO2 which you produce in these containers have different strength. This is crucially vital. It is absolutely important for us to understand this. Let me tell you why it's important. We just spoke about the Wikipedia, wikis and the rest of it, which is coming on. You have to understand something very interesting. Now you had the elements, you had the isotopes. Now you have the gravitational magnetic field strength of not only the isotopes, but the isotopes in respect to the environment which they have appeared or appear. So now, if let's say from the elements we know 200 some elements with what we call atomic mass or atomic weight, whichever you look at it, or atomic number. Now, instead of a few, we have suddenly have millions of new materials in plasma condition in our possession. And this is how your body uses this. We don't bring millions of different materials to make the cell of the liver or the heart. The body of the man uses, as is in the gas state, as is in the vacuum state, different strength of the isotopes of the same matter. Now, the game of world of plasma as of today has changed. Now, you can decide the composition. Now, not only you can decide the composition, you can decide when you make the composition, what I want to be in the alloy, that I can make the GANs of it. And not only to make the GANs of it, I can create a specific CO2 out of it that is only touches the cells in a given neural system, in a given part of the body of the man. Now, you can see how many PhDs pops out, billions. That's why PhDs has no value. We share the knowledge. We are all professors and graduates. Start playing. Start working with this new knowledge. And then, for example, when you have, as I said last week, this came up with Benjamin. When you make the CO2 of the magnesium, it's not the same as CO2 of NaOH or potassium. The percentage of the potassium, what potassium dictates which layer of which material will come out. As we said before, when you buy 9.9999999 copper purity, that 0.00001% of the impurity contains all the elements, and it has to be across the boundary of this material. So you create, only release 0.0001, which is a specific nickel, which is there. And then you create a new sandwich condition. This new knowledge has to be exploited and used in detail. Then, now that we have the knowledge, we understand how we can specifically categorize what kind of CO2 we make. It's the same. Look at your nickel or your zinc. When you put and produce zinc oxide, if you understood this, now you produce a zinc oxide with potassium in it. Look into the structure of the brain and see which neural system has a potassium link to it, more of. So using a zinc plate which created a GANs of zinc with a magnesium of a certain strength, or potassium or calcium of certain strength, you can target the area of the neural system you want to repair. And in reality, you don't need to digest it. You put it in a bowl as a dynamic core, or you put it on a coil and you deliver it. And because it's an instantaneous delivery, you get an instantaneous result, because you bring the position into balance. Now we'll really start playing the game of plasma technology, understanding it, manipulation of it, the way our body does. As I said, we don't drink or eat 1 million different items to have different cells. We eat specific elements in matter state or in a GANs state, and then our body, through its glands, decide what energy to give to bring it up or reduce it to become a cell of a heart as a muscle tissue, or a cell of the what you call a lung as a tissue. Now we see the game changes. Now we see the world of the science of the plasma technology becomes beautiful to play with. Now it gives us a new opportunity for production of superconductors at room temperature, super resistors at the room temperature, where you can automatically switch the super resistor to superconductor with a flick of a thought. Because now you work with plasma. The science of plasma technology, as we detach you more and more from matter state and you look into the plasma state, changes a lot of things. It doesn't change, it adds to the knowledge. It strengthens the knowledge that now we used to do it this way, now we can add to what we used to do, we have more to do. You got to remember, as you have produced, if you remember, like copper oxide, and you change the rate of the current flow, you got different colors. You can do the same with composite alloys. And the beauty with this is that you can create new condition, new environment, new tools to achieve what you need directly. You have a heart blockage. You can identify what has caused the blockage. Is it the emotional or is it the physical? What material? Then you can produce the parallel in the same strength and open the blockage without any brain hemorrhage where the particles can move, because now it's energy. Because now you transfer the matter into its plasmatic condition. Understand the gameplay. Understand the structure play. Understand the plasmatic structure that is addition to the matter structure. And then you start changing a lot of things. If you have, for example, a copper wire, this I was explaining to one of the innovation groups. I explained to you how we saw the current flow or high temperature onto a nano-coated copper creates molten metal matter state inside the tube. Now, imagine, not imagine, look at, you have a composite material, an alloy, which you decided before. And then you heated it up. The nanostructure does not get touched. But at given current flow or temperature, the copper melts. If you nano coat the copper wire perfectly, and then cut the end, just snip the end off, and then put a current flow towards the matter, you will empty the copper from the center of the tube. Now you have a true nanotube. And then, because you did the work to make it different layers of it, you have a true composite nanotube, which one, let's say, centimeter tube can behave for everything you need, because now the center is empty and full. Is actually, because it's held now by nanomaterial, one of the most powerful centers of principal energy. Now you see the game changes. But if you touch it, it'll break. It's so fragile. But now you can hang it, use the superconductivity for zero-time communication, levitation, magnetic gravitational positioning. I was explaining this morning in part of the teaching and past couple of days. When you melt or use this method to melt the copper to empty it, in some of the teachings a couple of years ago I explained this again, and now that we are more knowledgeable together, we understand the work of it. If you empty the copper fast, that it goes out of the nanotube you created, and with it you take one of the structures of the nanomaterial which is connected to it, you'll find that your nanomaterial in a way collapses into its matter state, and you say, oh, it burnt out, it disappeared. So you have to be very careful when you're producing nanotubes that you don't touch that outer layer. the outer layer of the matter state, that you can keep the composition of the nanotubes which you have created for superconductivity, whatever. So, for example, you made a paint pen coil. Now you can drain the matter state out of it. You will see the power changes by order of magnitude. Now let's look at another step. You're not careful, we haven't developed such a technology to be able to melt the copper without losing the nano coating to be converted back to matter and disappearance of it. Let's make a hole through the copper, the solid state matter, or use a tube which is not nano coated inside, but is not made of the pressurized, for example, tube making, if you want a specific condition, or you can use the tube. But you don't let the inside tube to be nano coated, you nano coat only the outside. And you nano coat it as the layers of different isotopes of the plasmatic condition of the matter. Now, you can fill this center with gases of your desire, or coils which you have nano coated differently. Now you see the power gain changes by order of magnitude. The coils you made for a stacker unit, now get a tube, copper tube, nano coat outside, and put inside it another nano coated tube. The game changes by order of magnitude. The same goes with the other elements. The same goes how we can manipulate the understanding. So, in a very simple way, we see totally new light in the condition of the nanoplasma technology. In the teachings with different groups, a lot of observation has been made over the past times. You can do the same thing with coal making. I was explaining in one of the innovation groups. Now that you understood that you create different nano layers in a way of, let's say, what we've seen, I convert this one back to here. Give me a color. This is your tube. You want to ignite the yellow line, or you want to ignite the purple line. See how you can speed up your nano coating. Nano coating you can speed up in 2 or 3 different ways. You nano coat a copper wire. You nano coat an aluminium. You nano coat, let's say, zinc. Two, 3 centimeters. And you have, let's say, a transformer here. Now you have 3 plasma condition nano coating in parallel with each other, feeding to one line, and you can decide which one you want to transfer energy or feed through. Or you put of a different strength on the other side of the unit, different materials, GaNs, and you can make the same connection and understanding of the gravitational magnetical field. You can operate in a different zone. What it means? It means you can speed up your nano coating. This is the direction of flow of the current. You have connected this to a power supply. You decide here the voltage stay constant and you change the current flow. You choose a lighter nano-coated material on the entry, heavier nano-coated material on the exit. The eddy current of the flow, what we call it, of the plasma, will nano-coat because this wants to reach to the other, and you nano-coat your transformers, your cables on a much faster way. In a way, the gravitational wires on this side pull the other side, and you nano-coat your transformers within hours, within minutes. But this has another advantage. You can control power the same way. Now, if I put this here, and I put this here, the same pieces of the wires which you have nano-coated. Now, here, I could control the flow in a voltage way. Now, you want to change the current, or you want to make a composition of it. So, you dictate what materials in the coil you want to be nano-coated. Zinc, copper, whatever. This is, if you look at it, the nano-coated copper. This is the zinc on this side, and your medium now is the copper wire itself. The only thing you have changed, you have moved from a liquid state media into solid state media. This is the power and the beauty of this technology. Now, if you understood this structure, you can nano-coat materials internally of the elements which you want, and this opens a new dimension in the world of metrology, computer development, communication satellites, everything else you can imagine. You choose the frequency now to broadcast. Now you choose gravitational magnetic field, so anybody can use any isotopes. Hundreds of billions of people across the world out of one line can communicate. We thought with the present, what we call cables for communication, we have passed this purity. Now we come into a new dimension world of communication, if you understood how to use this. The beauty with this is, you don't need to put cables across. You only need a small tube. The link of communication, if you made a matching one, it's the same telephone number which gets contacted. Everything, now that we understand more of, has changed. As I said to you, we take you in the true space technology, now that you understand the totality. Ruben. Now you understand the game change. Now you understand why the technology has opened a new horizon. Now you can play new games. Now you can make composite ganses. You can do the same thing if you understand. When you put a gans of CO2 on top of each other, you see different colors, because now this is a gans made by NaOH. This is a gans CO2 made by magnesium and the others. Always understand something very interesting: the order of magnitude and the composition. In the what we call homeopathy, there is a path of belief that we have 12 different salts in the body of the man. But now make a composition of the variation of the 12 salts plus every element which man knows, and then you can see the variation of the billions of the composition of the materials which is available to the body of the man for production of different cells. Now you understand the game change. Now you understand how the body works. And for the first time, we open the Pandora box. Is and has been to understand more of. Now we understand more. Now we can play bigger game. We can play universal game. Part of the research in the universities which we achieve is to open this Pandora box. Does Raman spectroscopy have any room? Or can we use the Raman spectroscopy of the plasma to achieve more? So now you see how far can we do, how far we can push, how far we can understand that we can dictate the condition.